Man, I gotta tell you, one of my favorite techniques is flipping heavy cover. There is just nothing like it.
Everybody has to have a flipping stick in their arsenal, and we're going to talk about it today on this episode of Build to Bite. So whether you're punching mats, flipping heavy cover, or even maybe fishing around docks, you got to have a flipping stick on your deck.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we have a few kind of quirks about the flipping stick that we carry. You know, I want to talk about the right handle length, the right reel seat, and the right guides. We all have a personal preference, but it all starts with the flipping stick, the blank itself. So let's take it over to the deflection chart and let's break down our flipping stick. All right, guys, here we are over at the deflection chart. It's one of my favorite tools in the arsenal. We got to talk blank first, and we need to talk material. What is your flipping stick made out of?
Yes, it's going to be graphite. Graphite's going to be the go-to material for a flipping stick, right? It's going to allow us to keep our butt diameters, slimmer. It's also going to make sure we have some sensitivity, right? When we're flipping mats and flipping heavy cover, we still want to make sure we have a flipping stick that's sensitive. And unfortunately, a material like fiberglass, it's going to be less sensitive. It's going to be heavier, larger butt diameters. Really, you got to stick with graphite, and that's my recommendation to go with.
So with graphite being the material of choice, let's talk about power and action. Speaking of power, we're talking heavy, extra heavy. Anytime you think heavy cover, you want to think heavy or extra heavy power. I've got 2 pounds of lead on this blank to get it to show its true action.
Yeah, and speaking of action, we're looking at the MHX FP936, right? And as you can tell, we have a nice, moderate, fast action. It's going to shut off right around this point of the blank and kind of go steady down to the butt section. But here, in this section here, is where our flex is going to be. Now, why do we want a mod fast action? It's the best of both worlds between a fast and a moderate, right?
Right.
You're not going to, when you feel that bite, you're not going to set the hook too fast to rip it out of the fish's mouth. But having a little bit of that moderate mixed in allows that fish to get the bait so you can get a good hook set and get that fish and land him in the boat.
So one of the more important parts of a flipping stick, in my opinion, is length. And I have my flipping stick here on the deflection chart. It's 7'9". When I'm around heavy cover, I like to be able to reach out and touch somebody.
And that's really where the MHX FP series really shines. With lengths ranging from 7'4" all the way up to 7'9", there's a length in there that's perfect for your flipping rod. Now that we talked about the blank, let's go check out some components. Now that we have our components laid out for our flipping stick, Chris, let's start with the handle and work towards the tip. What do you got for us?
So I'm not going to say that there is a wrong handle for a flipping stick. I personally like a split grip. I've got a couple options here, full cork or the EVA with the composite in it. We also have here on our already built rod a two-tone EVA. If you are someone that likes to go with a full-length handle, we've got a bunch of different options, including ones that even have a larger inner diameter in a cork, which you really can't find anywhere else. But if you like the full handle for whatever reason, you can absolutely go with that. One thing that I will say that is non-negotiable for me is the weighted butt cap. So this is almost an ounce, and it really plays an integral part in making sure that this is balanced while you fish throughout the day.
Absolutely. Having a balanced flipping stick is crucial in my opinion, right? Especially if you're a tournament angler, you're spending, 8 to 10 hours out on the water during a day. You're making thousands of pitches into heavy cover.
Yep.
That can fatigue you very quickly.
100%.
And in some cases, adding weight to the end of the rod, you might think, oh, why are we adding weight? That doesn't seem right. Balance is the key factor there. We want a balanced rod, especially when we're using, heavy tungsten weights like this 1.5 ounce here, punching these heavy mats. We want a rod that feels balanced in our hand so that we can avoid some of that fatigue throughout the day.
So for me, there's only one reel seat that goes on a flipping stick, but Hunter, you differ a little, right?
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of the ECS seat from Fuji. It's an exposed reel seat. I'm a bigger fan of the ACSM from Fuji. To me, it all depends on where you're actually holding these reel seats. Some people prefer to have just one finger behind the trigger. Some people might be two. It really depends on where you hold it. So whether you're a fan of the ACSM reel seat from Fuji or the ECSM, both of these reel seats are great. They're exposed here. They come in multiple sizes, and it allows you to have that blank direct blank contact to make sure you feel all those bites throughout the day.
All right, so I think we'll just agree to disagree on the real seat. But before you put that down, let's show them why that we don't run any foregrips on our flipping stick.
Yeah, for me, a foregrip really isn't needed, right? Most of the time, we're going to be palming our reel, and you really don't have any, contact with your fingers above the reel seat. So for me personally, I like going with a simple silicone winding check. What's great about these snap-in winding checks is they literally do fit perfectly inside the top of this reel seat. Now, if you want to go a different route, another popular option is the TWC winding checks. These also fit very flush against the size 16 reel seat. We also have them in size 17 as well to fit the 17 seats. So again, typically for a flipping stick, Chris and I are not going to use a foregrip. There's really no need to, but you still have to have a nice transition between the top of your reel seat to that rod blank. And that's where these winding checks play the perfect part. And we certainly cannot forget about a hook keeper, right?
Yeah, hook keepers can be a pet peeve of mine. I want the perfect hook keeper for every job, and that's why there's a dozen hook keepers out there. So when we're flipping, we're using a big weight and a Texas rig weedless style with a beaver bait. You can see here, big flipping hook inside of this D-bomb. What is going to happen there if you do not have the right hook keeper? You're going to have to continually pull the hook out of the bait to put it inside of a closed hook keeper. We want to eliminate that. So we use a CRB arrow style hook keeper that's open, or we use a click-in style hook keeper like the American Tackle Deluxe hook keeper. This is going to save you money, help keep your bait secure when you're running down the lake, but you're not going to have to tear the plastic in and out. It's going to be clean and neat, and it actually serves a true purpose on a flipping rod. Now that we've got the handle section out of the way, let's move out to the guides. This is something that Hunter and I actually agree on, and we have a very unique guide train that we set up on our flipping rod.
Yes, we do. So, there's a lot of variations of sizes you can do for a flipping stick. Personally, the one that we recommend is starting out your stripping guide with a size 6 double foot guide. And then from there, we typically go to 1 number 5 size running guide. And then we finish that out with size 4 running guides all the way to the tip.
Yep.
Usually on a, 7/9 flipping stick, we're using up to 12, 13, maybe even 14 guides on some occasions. So don't be shy with using more guides than you typically would, because again, we're using very small guides here.
Right.
We're using a flipping stick. We're not casting this in most occasions, so you can get away with going with those lower or smaller guide sizes. And we're also using braid, right? So we don't have to worry about fluorocarbon and the coils and things like that. So you can get away with going to the very small guide sizes. This is going to be less weight on the tip of your rod, and that's the guide train that we typically recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get to a tip top, the kind of secret behind these flipping and pitching series blanks is when Bob sat down and we all sat down to draw these up, we actually kept the tip top sizing in the back of our mind. Since we're running size 4, size 4.5 runners, we've got to maintain a 4, a 4.5 in a tip. Well, we made sure that the FP series has a tube size that is 6.5. If you've ever built a flipping stick on a big rod blank, you get down to the tip and you realize there's no options with a size 7.5 or 8 size tip, and then still maintain a micro guide type ring. So Fuji and American Tackle both have options that will give you a size 4, 4.5, and even a 5 that has a tube size of a 6.5, even up to a 7. So we really have thought this through, and that's why having, very specific components on a flipping stick is important. So in custom rod building, we've got a few nuances that might go unnoticed by just the regular angler and somebody that doesn't build custom rods.
Right. We've talked about adding a weighted butt cap to our flipping stick. That might sound silly. Why are we adding extra weight to a rod? Aren't we supposed to keep these lightweight and have, the great sensitivity and all those features? Well, yes, but balance is a key feature here. And especially with a 7.9, 7.4 to 7.9 flipping stick, adding weight to the back is critical in my opinion. Chris, walk us through how you add weight to the back of a flipping stick.
Yeah, so during the components section, we were talking about this weighted butt. So this is an aluminum butt cap with a rubber end to it. So it weighs about an ounce, and to be honest with you, it's kind of attractive. It's a nice piece. It comes in 4 or 5 colors, and it's something that you can add to your flipping stick that doesn't stand out too much, but will give you that little bit of extra weight in the rear of the handle to kind of lighten that tip up a little bit. With adding pieces that are not necessarily designed for a flipping stick, we got to take into account how we're going to mount this. So when we take our FP936, it actually comes in white. This is the white version. We're going to dry fit the butt cap, and I'm going to mark where the front edge of this weighted butt stops. I will mark that with a China marker, and then I'm going to come back in with the 1/4 inch masking tape, and I'm going to create 2 arbors. You might ask yourself, well, can't you just create 1 arbor with a 1/2 inch masking tape? You can, but this is a better way of doing it. When you have 2 arbors, it will keep the kind of play out of the butt cap. It'll be nice and even, and you have a center section there that's a direct line to the blank, so that it will be bonded when you add your Pro Paste 2-part epoxy. This weighted butt's not going anywhere. All you have to do, add your 2 arbors, apply your Pro Paste, and you can slide that weighted butt right on there. It only needs to be just snug. When you dry fit it, it doesn't need to be able to fall off. It doesn't need to be super tight because the epoxy is going to take care of everything. Now, if you do not like the look of this weighted butt, or you don't have one, or you want to just add weight to any fishing rod that you already have, I am going to take a either lead or tungsten weight, and I'm going to insert it into the butt section of this fishing rod. If you notice, I have also added a tape arbor, and that is going to match the inner diameter of this rod blank, so it's not going to slide or get loose. When you add your arbor, all it needs to do is fit snug inside of that rod blank. And since the rod blank tapers smaller as it goes forward, it's not going anywhere. You add some Pro Paste ahead of that weight, dip a little Pro Paste on it, and slide it in. Then you can either add more weight with a fighting butt that is weighted, or you can put on a regular EVA or a cork fighting butt, and no one is the wiser that there is any weight in the butt section of this rod.
And to finish off, going back to our weighted butt cap, you've got to have a clean transition from the edge of that butt cap to the rod blank. That is where the American Tackle AAWC winding checks have the perfect flush fit from the top edge of your fighting butt down to your rod blank. And I believe this size in particular is a 15.
15.
But of course, we have winding checks that range in all sizes. So whether it's this FP936 or maybe another rod blank, that AAWC winding check is the ticket to make that transition from the fighting butt down to the rod blank. And there you have it. We walked you through how to build the ultimate flipping stick, from choosing the right blank to the right components, and we even showed you how to install that weighted butt cap.
We hoped you liked this episode, and be sure to like and subscribe, and even drop us a comment if you want us to build a specific custom rod or a certain technique, and we'll be sure to cover it on future episodes.